Okay, so this week we're going to be talking about Parshas Korach a little bit. The pasuk starts off, "Vayikach Korach ben Yitzhar ben Kahas ben Levi v'dosam v'aviram b'nei Eliyav and ben Peles b'nei Ruvain." That what did Korach take? So he looked b'dvarim, that whole story, and then pasuk Hey says, "Vaydaber al Korach v'al kol hadosei lemar bokar v'yoda Hashem es ashaloi v'es hakodesh v'ikriv elov v'es asher yivchar bo yakriv elov." So Rashi says, Bokar, ata is shikrus hulanu. Now it's a time of shikrus or unclarity. Figure that overnight maybe they'll do tshuva and maybe they'll reconsider their plan against Moshe Rabbeinu. So the question that all the Mefarshim are busy with is, why did he have to wait? Why couldn't he just give them an answer right now? Why can't he prove to them right now? That's one thing we have to know about. Number two, who was Korach? What was going on? What was the whole story over here? So, one of the main questions that the Mefarshim ask, this is going back. The Maram Shif already mentions this at the end of Chulin. The Maram Shif has a bunch of nice vertlach and drushes. It's called Drushim Nechmadim, and he has a lot of nice things over there. And he talks about this question, and Reb Chaim Kanievsky brings it. And I want to go through what Reb Chaim says, and in time of the Crow, and try to make some sense out of what's going on. But before we do that, I just want to go through a medrash in Tanchuma Siman Hey. It goes like this. What's the pshat in Bokar? Davar acher Bokar. Amar lehem Moshe. Moshe said to them, Gevula is cholak HaKadosh Baruch Hu ba'olamai. HaKadosh Baruch Hu set boundaries in His world. Yicholim atam l'arav yom b'layla. Can you mix day and night? Zeu shamar kosav. This is what the pasuk says. Batchila. First the pasuk says Vayer Vayibokar. And then the pasuk says, "Vayavdel him beina or beina chayshach." So first it was Vayavdel him beina or beina chayshach, and then it was Vayibokar. B'shvil tashmisha shalaylam. Ukashem shehivdel beina or beina chayshach. Just like HaKadosh Baruch Hu separated between the light and the dark, kach hivdel es Yisrael min umis. So too He separated Klal Yisrael from the nations of the world. Shenemar va'avdel eschem min ha'amim li'osli. Like the pasuk says, that I separated the nations from Klal Yisrael, I separated Klal Yisrael from the nations to be for me. V'kach hivdel Aaron, so too HaKadosh Baruch Hu separated Aaron. Shenemar vayavdel Aaron la'akdisha b'kodesh hakadoshim. So too I separated Aaron to sanctify him b'kodesh hakadoshim. Im yichelim atam la'akev oisa havdalah shehivdel HaKadosh Baruch Hu ben hayom u'ben halayla kach tuchlu luvata lezu. If you're able to stop the difference, meaning if you're able to blur the boundary, so to speak, that HaKadosh Baruch Hu created between Yom and Laila, between day and night, so too you could be mevatel the Havdalah that HaKadosh Baruch Hu was mabdal Aaron from the rest of Klal Yisrael. L'kach amar lehem, therefore he tells them, Bokar v'yoda Hashem, kvar hu mesukin, this is already all set up, es asher yivcha b'yakar v'elov, zeis asu kuchul chamachtas uchulu. So, obviously, there was a certain concept over here of boundaries that Korach was trying to push, in a sense. The Korach, one of the ways to learn about what Korach wanted to be a Levi Gadol, just like there's a Kohen Gadol. Why is it right that only the Kohanim have somebody that's Gadol? Why not have somebody that's a Levi Gadol as well? So the story is like this. First I want to talk about the man a little bit, then I want to talk about where Korach got all his wealth from and somehow put it together. So I'm going to read what it says in time of the Krah and then hopefully get through what we need to get through over here. So Dr. Reb Chaim, l'chayre kasha madu hutzrach leimer lehem sheyaviu machdas v'lo hayachol hayichiach lehem shekorach hu rasho bal machlekes al yidei yeridas haman. Why couldn't we prove from Korach? Why couldn't we prove to Korach from the man? Like the Gemara says in Yuma Daf Ayin Hey, tzadikim yared al pesach batem. The man fell by the tzadikim by the door to their house. The beinanim yotzav v'loktu. The Beinanim had to go out a little bit, and the Rishram Shalta v'loktu. They had to go Mechutz Lamachna very far. And certainly for Moshe Rabbeinu, the man fell at the entrance to his house. And Korach v'Adasai, they needed to go Mechutz Lamachna to collect, as Avi Yishtei Maram Shif. But what's interesting is, what throws a monkey wrench into this whole business, so to speak, is that Reb Chaim quotes here Shevet Musar, that says that on the day of the Machlekes of Korach, Lo Yorad Klal Haman Li Yisrael Migodel Einish HaMachlekes. The man did not fall the day of the Machlekes of Korach v'Adasai because of the greatness of the Machlekes. And he explains over there that, by the Egel the man still fell, but not by the not by the machlekes of Kairach. So Zok Reb Chaim Lefiza Asi Shapish Rei Ad Oisei Hayom Shal Machlekes Kairach Tzadik Vil B'Yom Shal Machlekes Lo Yard Klal Haman. And then Reb Chaim says the famous word that Kairach thought that he wasn't being meicha enough. So if he would have been meicha more against Moshe, then the man would have felt closer to him. Obviously, I don't want to. And then Reb Chaim says, that when you're dealing with Leitzanim and Rishoim, so you could prove that you could tell them anything. They're just not interested. I know a story of a Magachir in Novominsk that the boy was always coming late. So the Magachir told him, I'm going to give you a knas. He said, I don't care. He said, I'll call your parents. He said, I don't care. He said, I'll throw you out of yeshiva. He said, I don't care. If the guy doesn't care, then there's nothing you could do to change him. There's nothing you could do to help. So the question is, that's how Reb Chaim basically explains what the idea of Kairach was. He just totally didn't care. So I want to just go through the Gemara in Yuma, the Vayin, to explain this a little bit better, to see what was going on, what the man was, what the story with the man was all about. Tanya Idach, the Brisa says, God, the man was Kizara God Lavan, Shemagid Lahem Yisrael Ibn Tisha L'Rishon Ibn Shiva L'Achron. That if there's a suffix when the child was going to be born, so the man was able to clarify that suffix. So Lavan, Shemal Ben Aveni Seim Shel Yisrael, and it was Lavan, is a lashon of libun, to clean out, to make white the averes of Klal Yisrael. Tani Rabbi Yosi Omer, Kishem Shehanavi Hayamag Lahem Yisrael Masha B'Chorin and Masha B'Stakin. Just like a Navi was able to tell a person's story, all the cracks and crevices of his life, Kach Haman Mag Lahem Yisrael Masha B'Chorin and Masha B'Stakin. So too the man was a tell-all that was able to tell everybody what was going on in all the cracks and crevices of their life. All the privacy of their life became clear by eating the man. Ketzad, how do we understand this? Two people came to Moshe with an argument. One of them says that, my Eved stole. The other one says, you sold him to me. Let's wait for tomorrow. The next day, if you found the omer of the man for the Eved and by the place of by the house of the Rabbi Rishon, by the original owner, and if they found it by the house of the second guy, then they knew that he sold it to him. The same is true if a husband and wife would come to Moshe with a dispute. And she cheated on me. And she says, he cheated on me. Let's go see and wait for tomorrow. What's going to happen? If she would find the omer of man by her husband, you would know that she cheated on him. If the omer was found by her father, that they weren't able to live together anymore. So it's interesting because the Gemara says that the Gemara Sanhedrin, the Kuf Yud, when it's talking about the story of Kairach, it says the Moshe was Yipal al Panav, and the reason for that is because they were Choshed Moshe Feishes. So they were waiting to see what would happen with the man also, because they were Choshed Moshe Feishes, and the man would be able to clarify any Chshad of Eishes as well. So that's how they were able to. That's what they wanted to be able to clarify through the man. So, what's epis with Kairach with the man? So, I want to suggest the interesting thing that the Yerushalmi explains when the Yerushalmi is talking about the story of Kairach v'Hadassah and how the ground swallowed them up. Says that every single bit of property that was owned by a Kairach member, so even if it was a needle, it was a sewing needle, it was a tiny little thing that got swallowed up in the ground wherever it was, whether it was on the other side of the Machna, whether it was near where the Kairach was. And that was part of the fright, why everybody was so afraid of what happened. Because if they owned something that belonged to somebody else, all of a sudden it got swallowed into the ground. And what's interesting is, not that this is mamsh's correlation, just a thought, just an interesting idea, but the Gemara Yuma says, that it was nivla ba'ivarim, that the metzias of the man got swallowed into the ivarim, into all ramach ivarim, and there was no waste, and that was why they said that there was a lechem hakalekal. They complained about it because in kedusha there's a concept of separating the good and the bad. when it came to Korach didn't have this concept of separations. He wanted to have everything together. He wanted to have Kol Ha'eda Kulam Kedoshim. Everybody should be Kohen Gadol. So the man, Korach wanted everything to be like the man. It was Nivla Beivarim. Everyone should be able to have everything. There shouldn't be Yom, there shouldn't be Laila, there shouldn't be Moshe Rabbeinu, there shouldn't be Aaron. It should be one big pool where everybody can enjoy everything together. That's what Korach's idea was. So to say that the man should be a Haichacha, Korach wanted the man to be a Haichacha for his purposes. So Moshe Rabbeinu says, not for now. The man won't. That day the man didn't fall. But I want to be Moisef another Mekudah from something else that Reb Chaim says. The Gemara says that, what was his name? His name was Korach ben Yitzhar. What does Yitzhar mean? So the Gemara Sanhedrin says that Ben Sheher Siach Olav Es Kol Ha'olam Katzaharayim. He made the entire day boiling hot. He made the entire world boiling hot. Resiach means to boil. So he made everything boiling. He made everything boiling hot. Katzaharayim, like when the sun shines brightly, strongly in the afternoon. Says Reb Chaim that the Medrash says in Bereishis Rabbah, Galgal Chamo Yesh Le Nartik. The sun has a casing. Shenemar LaShemesh some oil behem. That there's the oil that protects the sun from burning the world. Ubrecha Shal Mayim Lefanav, and there's a pool of water in front of it. B'shashu Yotze, when the sun comes out, HaKadosh Baruch Hu Matish Koiche B'Mayim. Shelo Yetze V'Yisref HaSa'olam. So HaKadosh Baruch Hu puts the sun into the water, so to speak. Obviously, this is Chazal talking. This is not a scientific thing. This is what Chazal are saying. And that the sun shouldn't go ahead and destroy the world. So the Radal explains that it goes through the Yamuk Kainus, like it says in Pirkei Rebbe Lezer, and that's the Mayim that cools it off. And the Gemara and by Korach, the Shemesh and the Yoreach, the Gemara says in the Dorim on Daf Lamed Tesam Beis that the Shemesh and the Yoreach, they're in the Rukiah, and they went up to the Zvul, which is a different place. It's not where they belong. So that's why it was Ben Sheher Siach Olav Es Kol Ha'olam Katzaharayim. So it didn't go through the Ukainus. It didn't go through the water, the Brecha of Mayim that would normally cool it off, and it made the entire world very, very hot. And because it made the world very, very hot, so I wanted to say that that's maybe why the mun wasn't there, because the mun would fall early in the morning, and it was covered over with tal. And what does the pasuk say in Parshas Peshalach? The pasuk says, "V'yilku to say b'boker ishkefi achloi v'cham hashemesh v'namas." What does Rashi say? V'cham hashemesh v'namas, that the sun would heat it up and then it would melt. Anything that was left in the field would melt, and v'nasan echal v'sheis v'menu elam utzvoim. And the mun would melt and would run into streams, and all the wild animals in the desert would drink that. And the goyim would catch these animals, and the goyim would be able to taste the tam of mun. And they would know the greatness of Klal Yisrael. They would start praising Klal Yisrael. So again, this is going to go back to that Yisrael, that Korach wanted everybody to everything. Why should goyim taste the mun? Right? Obviously, it was because Klal Yisrael. But if we're looking that there's no boundaries, there's no Havdalah between Yom and Laila, there's no Havdalah between Aaron HaKohen and everybody else, then there shouldn't be any Havdalah between Klal Yisrael and Musaylim Chas Shalom either, right? Obviously, this is talking about it was Taka still protected Binyan Akdusha, but this was the issue with Korach, that he didn't want to have any kind of boundaries of any sort. Okay, now let's go to the Gemara Sanhedrin of where Korach got all his. Oh, we have one more thing about the mun. Let's see if we can pull this off. Or two more things about the mun. So there's a question: if we know that the mun didn't fall on Shabbos, the state beferish in the pasuk. The question is, what about on Yontif? So in Binyan Shloima, Mechelik Beis Simon Chafei, he says that the story of Korach happened on Leil Shavuos, and Shmuel, who was a descendant of Korach, and that's why Einoi Hitase, because he saw a Shalshalas, a Gadlus coming out of his generations. So Shmuel was Mamlich Shaul on Shavuos, and it says Haloik Tzir Chitam Hayoim, and that's referring to Shavuos. And Shmuel was from the descendants of Korach, and on that day that he was Mamlich Shaul, which was a cover for Shmuel, that says Vayiru Kol Ha'ames Hashem Ve'Shmuel, Korach, that was a tikkun, so to speak, meaning when Shmuel was Mamlich Shaul, it was sort of a tikkun for Korach, because altogether Shmuel would be a tikkun for Korach. But The Medrash says, "Vayomer Moshe el Hashem al tefen el menchasam al tekablim b'tshuva hayitzarich lemikra lemer al tefen el avoidasam mahu el menchasam kach amar Moshe l'fnei Hakadosh Baruch Hu Rebbeinu Shalom v'yedei ani sheyesh le'elu chelik b'eisa mincha shekrivu shenemar milvad oilas hatamid u'menchasa v'hoisa shel kol Yisrael krei v'hoy l'prishu." So the al tefen el menchasam, and then the Medrash uses a pasuk by the Karbanos Hashuos. Why do you bring a pasuk from the Karbanos Hashuos? Bring a pasuk from the regular carbon tamid of every day. So that's also going back to this concept of Shavuos, that so if the mon fell on Shavuos or not, that's the question that the Binyan Shlem is something we could still to this Indian over here. Okay, but that's a separate concept. Okay. Now we know the Mishnah Nova says that a Sar Dvar Nivru Be'erev Shabbos Ben Hashmoshes. And what were they? The Pia Ha'aretz, to swallow the Rishonim, and the Mun. So the question is why the Mun was created Erev Shabbos Ben Hashmoshes, which l'chayra would lend itself to have an understanding that as much as the Mun was a clarification, but the Bria of the Mun, the Shas HaCreation, the time of the creation of the Mun was Ben Hashmoshes. That's a very foggy time. That's more of like a Kairach kind of concept, but that's when the Mun was created. So what was the pshat in that? So the Chassam Sofer explains by the pasuk Mikol Eitz Hagan Ochel Toichal that it says that before the chet that caused death to the world, they didn't need to eat to be satisfied, because everything was good. But everything that they did was every achila would be some kind of hakravas hakarbon or be mekadosh things. But if they would eat from the Eitz Hadas, then he would need to eat to sustain himself, and then his eating is not going to be considered a carbon, and then he would lose the mitzvah of Ochel Toichel. So, yes. And the concept of man was like this concept was very much alive by the man. Just to say over a fascinating concept that I found about the Ridas Haman, that it says by Yoina, Vayaman Hashem Dag Gadol Levloya es Yoina. There were 15 days that Klal Yisrael did not get the man, and those 16 days that Klal Yisrael didn't get the man, from all these 40 years, HaKadosh Baruch Hu took these. It was 16 days that Klal Yisrael didn't get the man. Hashem took those 16 days worth of man and gave it to the dog, to be mefarnes the dog, that he should have something to eat. And it says Vayaman. What's Vayaman? Yud Vav, which is 16 man, which is a fascinating thing altogether. And the Bnei Sascha brings in the Ramami Panadal Asad Lavai by the Sudas Livyasan. So every Suda needs to have bread, and there's a tzintzenas man that was put away for this Suda. That's the pshat in the pasuk that it says V'hanach oisoi l'fnei Hashem l'mishmer l'dereseichem. And when l'dereseichem means when all the deres are going to be together. And the Maharsha says in Chagiga that the Gemara says that Shchakim, which is another one of the Shiva Rakiyim, Shabayre Chayim Oimdes V'teichnes Man l'tzadikim, and there's a gears in the Gemara of that they're teichin man l'tzadikim l'asad lavai, because what HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave Klal Yisrael man in the midbar was man that was going to be given to them l'asad lavai also. And part of the reason why the Gemara says, the Maharsha says that part of the reason why the Gemara says in Sanhedrin that ein ledar hamidbar chelik le'elam haba is because they already got the schar of elam haba in elam hazeh, that they ate the man. So by eating the man, it took away, so to speak, from their elam haba. Okay, enough with the man. Let's go to Kairach and where he got his wealth from, and try to explain it and try to put it all together. So the Gemara says in Sanhedrin and Kuf Yud Amud Aleph, Amar Reb Chama Reb Chanina Gimel Matmanias hit min Yosef in Mitzrayim. There were 3 treasures that Yosef put away in Mitzrayim. Achas Nisgalsa LeKairach. One was revealed to Kairach. Achas Nisgalsa LeAntaninos Ben Asvirus. It's Antanim and Rebbe. And one of them was put away for the tzaddikim la'asad lavai, which, everything that's going to be la'asad lavai, whether it's going to be the man, or whether it's going to be this, or whether it's going to be that, fine. The Medrash says in Bamidbar Rabbah, Parsha Yud Ches Ois Tezvav, it's darshaning a pasuk in Iyov, Vayishkoin Arim Nechados Batam LaYesh V'Lamai Sheres Astu Legalim LaYeshar V'LaYokim Chelav LaYita LaOretz Minlam. So the pasuk says, "Vayishkoin Arim Nechados Batam LaYesh V'Lamai Sheres Astu Legalim." Zehaya Koirach Shahaya Katlikus LeBeisei Shel Paroi V'Haya Biyodai Mafteches HaOitri Shaloi. That Koirach was the treasurer of Paroi, and he had the keys, and he had the keys of all the oitros. What hana do you have? It's not yours. You think you're important because you're walking around with all the keys. You don't have keys. The Gemara also says that he had a lot of keys, that he had 300. He had 300. Bamar Levi. Masay Gimel Meis prayed the Slavanas Hayim Avtecha Shal Beis Gnazu Shal Kairach V'Kulu Aklidi V'Kilfi Gilda. There were 300 prayed the Slavanas, which was a certain very chashuv a kind of donkey that would carry the keys for the Beis Gnazu Shal Kairach. That was just the keys for Kairach, and for the keys and the locks. The Aklidi is the keys, the Kilfi, the Gilda, and the locks that were made out of a certain kind of leather, and that was the wealth of Kairach. So HaKadosh Baruch Hu tells him, what benefit do you get? You don't own it. That these houses you're not going to be able to live in, and they're asher asdu legalim ulamihem usadim. Who are they going to be given to in the future? It doesn't belong to you. So who does it belong to? Le'elu shein goyim. For those that were in Golus, Yisrael shall golem mitzrayim. Abu Kairach le'yeshav le'yokim cheloi. Av kishayomos einoi kam v'le'yita le'aretz minla. So Klal Yisrael was in Golus in Mitzrayim. Kairach is not going to get wealthy, and he's not going to take away any of this great wealth that he got in Mitzrayim from Parai. Now, which is very interesting, because where does Kairach come in to Parai over here? L'chayr is very bothersome, because we know that Shevet Levi was always Isaac B'Torah, and they were always the ones, as I stated in Rambam, Ba'arichos, the Shevet Levi were always sitting and learning, and they were always busy, al Torah al Avodah, they're Makav the Karbanos, they had tremendous Mesiras Nefesh in the Midbar, and now all of a sudden we see somebody from Shevet Levi, and his name is Kairach, and he's doing all kinds of interesting things. He's Parai's treasurer. Why would anybody want to work for this person that's destroying our nation? That's he's killing the Jews. He's destroying our people. And you want to be his treasurer? So it's true that he wasn't working. He wasn't Mishabbat to Parai and Mitzrayim. So I think that maybe we could say a little bit of a something over here. The pshat is that instead of being Isaac B'Torah, v'yistar design with the rest of Shevet Levi, the Kairach was busy with Parai. Kairach was busy with money, and he was busy with covet. He wanted to be the treasurer of Parai, and HaKadosh Baruch Hu was telling him that it's not for you, but it's dafka for those that are in Golus Mitzrayim. You're not going to get it. You're not going to get it, but everybody, all the other people, Befrat from Shevet Levi, they're going to get a certain schar because they were meshubit, so there's sort of reparations, but Kairach wasn't part of the reparation. So what about Shevet Levi? Shevet Levi was always teaching Klal Yisrael, so they got trumas and maasros, as payment for their services to Klal Yisrael. But Kairach, if he's not being Isaac B'Torah, so what kind of reparations is he going to get? He's talking up Meshubah to pyramids, right? But it sounds like he's taking this opportunity to get involved in wealth and to get involved in money. Moshe Rabbeinu was Vayarpis of Leisam. He went out to see the pain that Klal Yisrael was in. Kairach wasn't Meshubah in Mitzrayim either, but he's going to go and kiss up to Pari, so to speak. Moshe Rabbeinu went to see how his brothers were doing in Mitzrayim. They were not doing great, and he came to give them chizik. Kairach is doing just the opposite. He's, so to speak, giving chizik to Pari. He's taking chizik from Pari. What's epis? What's his business? So the Sifsei Kain al Tyrus from the Talmid Arizal, he goes through the story. He tries to explain this a little bit. Ve'ech nigla lo l'Korach hamatmain. How was it revealed to Korach all this wealth? Shamati she'omer HaKadosh Baruch Hu l'Moshe daber na ba'oznei ha'am v'yishalu ish me'Yisraelu. When Klal Yisrael was leaving Mitzrayim, so they said. So Moshe says to HaKadosh Baruch Hu told Moshe, tell Klal Yisrael that they should ask the neighbors for all their stuff. V'lo nemar zeh ela liYisrael. This was only said to the Yidden. Shehu lehem chelev avodas, which is reparations and payments for their avodah that they did in Mitzrayim. Avol Shevet Levi shloi hayu ba'avodah lihuta lehem u'gezel b'yodam. Shevet Levi, they were not in the avodah Mitzrayim, so they were not allowed to take anything from the Mitzrayim, and it was gezel. Ki achas mishav mitzvahs b'nei noach wa gezel. One of the shav mitzvahs b'nei noach is gezel, and they have no right to take it. Ulazeh Shevet Levi le'yikrivu karbanos amanasim shloi hayu lehem karas kesef mizar kesef kaf achas asar zahav. Where did all the Nesiim get all this stuff from to be able to be makriv as the karbanos of the Nesiim? They were able to get that from the Bizas Mitzrayim. But Shevet Levi didn't have that because they were not allowed to take anything from the Bizas Mitzrayim. It was gezel for them. And they were all poor, and they were all going around to the granas, to the granaries, to collect trumas and ma'ases. No one from Shevet Levi touched anything from Bizas Hayam or anything from Mitzrayim. They didn't even ask them for anything because it wasn't right, because they weren't Mishabed in Mitzrayim. But Korach saw money, he saw wealth, he went running right after it. He didn't know that this was going to bring his downfall. He was standing and watching how everyone not from Shevet Levi is busy collecting all kinds of great wealth from Mitzrayim. And he was terribly jealous of what was going on. HaKadosh Baruch Hu, when he was in his matzav of Kina and Chemdas HaMammon, that's when HaKadosh Baruch Hu showed him this wealth. The chatzifusa afilu klap eshmai mahani. There's a certain chatzifus, and like the Gemara says, "Amakas b'derech shadam reitzel leilach melichin oisay." So HaKadosh Baruch Hu told him, "Ata chemid mammon shein shalcha, tell mammon rav." He says, "You're taking a lot of money. That's not yours. Take as much as you want. Take a lot. You could look at it, but you're not going to be able to enjoy it. You're never going to be able to stay clean from this money. Because this was money that was stolen, nobody was able to get any hana from it whatsoever. So Korach knew. Korach was b'kerchaya. He knew the halachas. He knew what he was allowed to take. He knew what he wasn't allowed to take. This he held. It was. He didn't steal it, so it's mutter for him to take it. And he knew it wasn't his though, so he felt a little bit uncomfortable taking it. Moshe and Aaron, although they were from Shevet Levi, their wealth came beheter. Moshe got from Pseilos or Luchos, and Aaron was a Kohen Gadol, Gadlei Mishal Achiv. And like the Gemara says, like the Medrash says that with Pinchas, that there was a kohen who was a stonecutter, and they appointed him Kohen Gadol. And the Ubo Achav HaKohanim V'Rosei Chaytzev Avanim, and his brothers, the other Kohanim, saw him chopping stones. They stopped him. They didn't allow him to do it. And they filled up the entire quarry full of gold coins, and it made him very wealthy. And when he saw that, he said, Rav Lechem. He told Moshe and Aaron, this wealth that you have is very, very much. His taina was on Moshe and Aaron. Mele Klal Yisrael gets a lot of money because they worked for it, because they were Meshubin in Mitzrayim. Moshe and Aaron, you weren't Meshubin in Mitzrayim. So how do you have money? Where do you take wealth from? Madua Tesnasu. You didn't work on it. And Dasim Vaviram were also very jealous because they were in Mitzrayim and they were wealthy and they lost their money. Shevet Levi saw so much wealth and so much money, and they had no taiva for it whatsoever. They didn't touch anything from the biza. They were disgusted by the wealth of the world. Neged limudam. That's where Shevet Levi comes from. So Korach was busy. How did he get the matmonius in Mitzrayim? How did he get the matmonius from Yosef? The matmonius from Yosef was Yosef boosted the economy in a major way in a major way. So they were able to, because Yosef boosted the economy of Mitzrayim, so all this kesef and stuff that they were taking with them from out of Mitzrayim, that was all because of Yosef. And Rabbeinu Bechai also goes on to explain the arichas, the midah of kina, and he was niskane, like Rashi says, he had kina on Eli Tzafon, which was his cousin. So it's interesting. Let's talk about Yosef. Yosef says, "Va'alisa b'zatzmoisam yizeh itchem," but the other shvatim didn't say. The other shvatim didn't tell anybody to take their bones out of Mitzrayim, because the Gemara says in Shabbos, "Rekav atzamos kina," that the bones of somebody who has kina is jealousy rot. Misha yesh le kina atzmoisav markivin. Somebody who has kina, his bones rot. So the other shvatim, they were bali kina, so they were chayshish that maybe their bones wouldn't be whole to take him out of Mitzrayim. But Yosef knew that he didn't have kina. Yosef is actually gematria kina. So he said, "Va'alisam asmoisam yizeh itchem." And Moshe Rabbeinu was Isaac b'atzmos Yosef, and not in the matmon Yosef, just the opposite of Korach, because it says "Vayikach Moshe asmos Yosef imay." So the concept of Yosef, he didn't have kina at all, and Korach was the exact opposite. He had the midas of kina. Virekev is gematria Korach, and he was niskayim by this pasuk rekev atzamais kina, that him and all his rechush and everything that he owned went all the way down. And the concept of kina goes all the way back to the Nachash HaKatmoini, as it says in Pirkei Rebbe Lezer, that he was niskana ba'adam Rishon, that the Nachash was miskana ba'adam Rishon ha'tziyah min ha'olam, and that was a very stark azach of kina. Now, technically speaking, if we go back to the mun to understand what the mun was about, where was the shaykh kina? L'chara, you would say that everybody got the exact same amount of mun, right? But we saw in the Gemara that tzaddikim were this way, Rishonim were that way. But Korach is saying kala eda kulam kedoshim, so everybody should really be getting the same amount of mun. So everybody should really be getting the same amount of mun. There should be no havdalas. There's tremendous. The whole concept of kedusha comes from the fact that there's a concept of havdalas. If everybody's on the same level, then how could you have a concept of kedusha? Nobody's greater than anybody else. How could I look up to somebody to learn? I'm on the same madrega as my rebbe. There's no such thing as a rebbe. There's no such thing as a navi. There's no such thing as a kohen gadol. Everybody's going to be on the same level, right? And that's the concept of rekavat somebody's kina, and that's what happened to Korach, and that's why Korach ended up where he ended up, because of this tremendous taiva for money that got him at the end. Now, I just want to end off with the last part of the Gemara. With the last part of the Gemara, that the third matman is going to be l'tzadikim l'asad lavai. So, the pasuk says Boker ויודע Hashem. So there's a medrash called Medrash Pisrin Torah, and it says the following: Medaber b'Yisrael v'umas. It's talking about Klal Yisrael and the umas ha'olam. L'fisha umas oimrim l'Yisrael ba'olam hazeh eino goyel aschem. The nations of the world tell Klal Yisrael, no one's going to redeem you from this galus. Yesh lonu masim tovim shalachem. We have greater deeds than you. Am lahem Yisrael. Harei hayin gadol bav anu yodim shenamar Boker ויודע Hashem. This Boker ויודע Hashem is talking about the Boker of l'asad lavai. Yezeh Boker shamar Yeshaya also Boker. But Bokeram shel Yisrael v'gam laila l'umas. V'cheinu oimrim v'haya yom echad v'haya leis erev shel umas yeh or Yisrael. And that's exactly what Korach was saying, that there shouldn't be any havdalas. There shouldn't be any havdalas between Yom and Laila. There shouldn't be any havdalas between Kodesh and Chol, between Klal Yisrael and the Umas. So then, if there's no difference between Klal Yisrael and the Umas, so then, what's the schar? What are we working towards? Even if it's Shalem, even if we're doing Avodah Shalem as the Kalba Pras, but we're working to get to a certain madrega. But there are no madregas, because everything should be equal, says Korach. So therefore we get, this Bokar, Moshe Rabbeinu waited for the next day for clarity purposes, because when it's also Bokar, like Yeshaya says, it's going to be extreme clarity from everything. And that's when, says the Gemara, that's when there's going to be achilas man for the tzaddikim la'asad lavai.